Hi everyone and welcome to my mixed media channel. It's Karen here with you today. Today I'm going to be sharing with you, it's actually quite a long video, but I'm making some collage papers with my gel press. So I'm just starting off with my super large Gelli Plate, and I'm using Amsterdam paints, acrylic paints, and uh, Stencil Girl stencils, and also some Carabelle texture plates. So I've pulled all those things out ready for me to have a play with, along with my my Deli Paper. Now, Deli Paper is something that you can get from Mimi at the Mixed Media store. I'll put a link to that down in the description. So it's a little bit like, well, it's used for wrapping up sandwiches and whatnot. She gets it from America, I think. So, yeah, and it's really quite good to use in collage because it's nice and thin, although it does have a little bit of a waxy side to it. Not that it really matters which side you use, I don't think. So I'm just going through with my gel press and just popping down random bits of paint, stencils, and obviously word stencils are going to come out in the opposite. So that didn't really bother me because I just wanted the texture in the layers of my Deli paper. But that is something to remember if you are using word stencils, is that they will actually come out backwards. So another thing that I'm using there is a piece of bubble wrap, just a bit of packaging, and it just creates a really cool texture when you actually do your pull. Now for me, I actually tend to use a little bit too much paint, so my first pull is usually the one that I'm not interested in. It's usually the second and third. So I'm actually going back over some of the prints that I do have and adding extra layers into it. The reason why I do that is because it creates that little bit more interest onto my collage papers. So when I go to rip them up, they're not just one layer. There's all different sorts of colours and shapes and patterns and things happening in them. So I'm really not too fussed on how they all turn out. I'm trying not to make ugly prints, but you do end up with a bunch of ugly ones. And later on you'll actually see me come back and, do some more printing over the top of those because they were really bad. Another thing to remember is when you're putting your paints down is to think about how your colours interact with each other. So a couple of times I've used a yellow and a blue, and it's turned out into a really bright Kermit the Frog green. I don't know why I did it twice, but anyway. So this particular stencil that I'm using is from Stencil Girl, and it actually looks really nice on the pulls. So I have sped this bit up, so you probably can't see all the patterns and everything coming up on there, but I will show you later how good they actually are. So here I am now going back over some of the really ugly ones to pop some extra layers over the top of those and to make them a little bit more interesting. So I've got my Stencil Girl stencils, my Amsterdam paint, still using those. That one was quite dark, so I've gone over it and put a pink over the top. I'm going to use this stencil here. Here's the Kermit the Green. What a horrible colour. Anyway, the third print actually was quite nice, but yeah, not that first one, but I will fix that later. That's okay. So I'm just adding in some bits of gold, some iridescent. I have this really pretty, it's a rose iridescent. This is the one that I'm using now. from Amsterdam, and it's quite translucent, and it just adds a really pretty shimmer over to the top of the gel prints. So yeah, so here's this really nice blue. I like this blue, it's really nice. So I'm just adding in the bits with the bubble wrap, and you can kind of see a little bit at the top of the screen. And I am trying to dry it a little bit in between layers, because sometimes, like, I've done this and then I've put my pattern in, which I'm about to do now, and then put some more paint over the top, and I've lost my pattern. Anyway, it's better to leave it, but because it's winter time here, things take forever to dry. So yeah, anyway, this one does actually turn out okay in the end on the about the third or fourth print. So it took a little bit to get it to go. And I don't clean my plates in between, because if you don't, what happens is all the little bits of leftover paint that are still on your gel plate get transferred onto your pools, and they create some really pretty effects. So what I'm doing now is I've just got a bottle top, just put some circles in. I'm using a Dina Wakley scribble tool there, just popping in some scribbles over that pink, making it look really pretty, rubbing it over the back, trying to get as much of it as I possibly can. And this one is actually my last pool. So you'll be able to see all my prints here in a minute when I'm going to clean up. So now what I'm going to do with my gel prints is that I'm actually going to add in some other details to them. So I've pulled out some stamps from Tim Holtz and Paper Artsy. I'm going to use archival jet black ink, and I'm going to add some extra bits over the top. So yeah, this one you can actually see is quite nice. It's turned out pretty good. So just adding in a few extra details. So I've got some Paper Artsy paint there and a Seth Apter stamp set, and I've just used some white paint onto the stamp. But after I've stamped it, it's very important to clean your stamp afterwards so that the paint doesn't stick, because the Paper Artsy paints are quite permanent. So here's this Kermit the Frog. Oh my goodness, what a hideous, this one's a really ugly one. But by adding in some stamping and some white paint, also in stamps, it does change it. And I'm also going to use some of my Dina Wakley gloss sprays as well, so that changes it again and makes it look really interesting. The gold splats there I'm just using with my really fat Posca pen. So I've just primed it by bobbling it up and down to make a puddle of gold paint, and then splatting it over my my deli prints. So this is another one here that turns out really pretty. So again, I'm using my Seth Apter paint stamps from Paper Artsy with the archival ink. I use the archival because it's permanent. There's some white gloss spray, and that one's done. This one here, I'm just going to add in some gold splats because that was quite nice. This one here's got the nice shimmer thing happening, so I'm just going to add in a few stamps over the top, and I think I add some splats as well. Yep, I do, with some white gloss spray. So some of them you can see are actually quite plain because one of the first pools that I've done, because I used too much paint. So the trick is not to use very much paint, but because I haven't had a real lot of practice, some of mine don't turn out all that awesome. But I do like the colours that I have ended up with. So in other words, you just kind of keep on going until you're happy with it. Well, that's what I did. But there's so many different ways on how you can use a gel press. This is just the way that I've done it. There's heaps of videos on YouTube on different techniques and things that you can do. So just search Gelli Plates and you'll come up with thousands of videos. So yeah, so here I am just adding a few other bits onto my papers. This one's got a nice shimmer to it as well, so I'm just going to add in some white splats over the top with that bit of leftover white paint that I had. So I'm just using pretty much the same stamp sets today, all those nice ones, well, the couple of nice ones that I have from Seth. Okay, so now I'm getting ready to do a project. So I'm just picking out which paper I might like to use today, and I'll just flip through so you can actually see what they look like. So they did turn out pretty good in the end. So I'm in my super large Niamh Baly journal, and I've got a background here that I've just created with some ocean and fuchsia paint, and I've just wetted it quite substantially with my big 2-inch brush and let that dry. So I've picked out this bit of collage paper to use, so I'm just gluing that down with some gel medium, and I'm actually working on the canvas part in my journal, so we'll see how it turns out. So I'm just adding in a little bit of extra white just to help break up some of that colour. In the end, I actually end up losing my bits of collage. You can kind of see them through the layers at the end, but yeah, that happens to me quite a lot. Like I make these pretty papers, or I use pretty papers, and I put them down, and then I end up covering up the whole lot. Oh well, that's the creative process, I guess. So what I've got here is some carnation Niamh Baly paint and one of Dina's stencils. So I'm just popping that through to create a little bit more interest there onto the bottom of my page. Just going over that with some scribbly lines with a Posca pen. And yeah, I mucked that bit up, so I'll just make that one a bit taller. And I'm just going around them again just to make them extra scribbly, and so it looks like it's, not on purpose. They actually look better if you put more lines around your shapes rather than just the one. Yeah, it looks looser, I guess is the word. So here's another Dina stencil, and I'm using some night paint. Now this face stencil is also from Dina, and I haven't actually used it before. I've decided that I would today. So I'm just popping it through with some Payne's Grey, which is from Amsterdam. It's not quite, well, it's a really dark grey, so it's not black, but yeah, it's really nice. It's a nice colour to have. So I've just popped it on there, but I felt like you couldn't really see it. So what I'm going to do is, as you can see, I'm just painting it over with a thin layer of gesso. And that's just so that I can still see the features of the face that I've stenciled, so I can paint them in again, which you can see me doing now. But also blanks out some of that pattern that I've got going on in the background, so that you can actually see the face. So I'm pushing the background back and bringing the face forward. So I'm actually going to come through and add in some other bits of colour here. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that maybe now I should have just put the stencil back over the top rather than trying to paint it myself. But anyway, I had a go, and that's all that really matters. It's my journal, so who cares? So I'm just putting in some pupils with some Poscas, just going over the top of the black because it looked a bit funny. I tried to keep the little dots in the middle, but it didn't work, so now I'm just going to draw them back in again. So I've got another black Posca there. Her eyes are a bit wonky. Oh dear. Anyway, doesn't matter. She's abstract. So it's all good. And her pink cheeks there were a little bit too pink, so I've added in some carnation just to tone them down a little bit. Putting in some extra white Posca into those whites of the eyes. Now what I've got there is actually an oil pastel from Schmincke, and I've decided to use that into a hair just to add it a little bit more interest, and because I had the gold on my original bits of collage that I put in as well. Now when I heated it up, the oil pastel obviously melted a little bit, so then I've just smudged it out and around, and I thought that looked really cool. Just putting in some extra details again with my Poscas, trying to make it a little bit better than what it was. Oh dear, she's an ugly one, this one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I've just about finished now, but I am going to use another bit of collage paper since I managed to cover up all what I had, and I'm going to put a little heart on her cheek because I think that looks cool. So I'll just dry that off. I've used some gel medium to glue that down with. So here is my page, even though I covered over my collage. Yeah, it didn't turn out too bad in the end, and I've added some spots in as well. So here is a bit of a finished look. I hope I have inspired you. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.